The neighbors whisper that I'm heartless, but they don't know my son sold his house and let his wife burn through $860,000. Now, with nothing left, they've marched into my home, living off me while branding me the villain. The doorbell rang hard enough to rattle the peephole. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and opened the door. "Dad," Dylan said, voice cracking, "we sold the house. We gave Sloane the $860,000 to manage. We need to stay with you for a while." Days after Dylan sold their home, my porch had become a loading dock. 2 suitcases, a garment bag, and a smile that didn't reach my daughter-in-law's eyes. "This isn't what we agreed," I said. "Plans change," Sloane answered, pearls bright in the porch light. "Family adjusts." I stepped back but didn't move aside. The roses along the rail were trimmed tight last week. The mulch still held the clean scent of cedar. This threshold was mine. "Why did you sell?" I asked. "We needed liquidity," Dylan said. He stared past me at the hallway photographs, as if his childhood might let him in. It made sense. "And the money?" I said. "Consolidating, high yield, safer with me. 860,000, gone in a sentence." I kept my voice even. "You didn't mention any of this when we spoke Sunday." "We were protecting you from the stress," she said. "And now we're here, so let's be gracious." Dylan rubbed his jaw. "Just for a little while, Dad." "Unsuccessful can be a long time," I said. Sloane lifted a roller bag to the threshold like a game piece. "We don't want trouble with the HOA. They love cooperation." "You'll find I love boundaries," I said. She laughed softly, and the sound carried down the street. Porch lights blinked on one by one. Neighbors noticed everything in this subdivision. The air kept score. "We can set house rules," Dylan offered. "I'll mow, I'll fix the loose gate. We'll pull our weight." "Close. You don't have a house to mow," I said. "You sold it." He flinched. Sloane squeezed his arm, then met my eyes. "We're family. Your own email said this house would always be open." "I remember what I wrote," I said. "Good," she said, "because we took you at your word." I didn't move. The night smelled like cut grass and distant rain. A minivan drifted past, slowing, then continued. "Where are you staying tonight?" I asked. "Here," Sloane said. Dylan's voice thinned. "Just until we stabilize." "Stabilize with what?" I said. "You gave away your safety net." "Invested," Sloane corrected. "Words matter." "Results matter more," I said. She tilted her head, calculating. "You're upset, of course, but this is temporary. We'll be good for you, too. Company, help with chores, safer for everyone." "It was safe," I said, "until this conversation." We stood there while the porch light hummed. My son's shoulders sagged further under a weight I couldn't carry for him anymore. "Let's make this easy," Sloane said, voice dipping into sugar. "We roll in the guest room, you put on a pot of coffee, and tomorrow we talk details." "Not tonight," I said. She glanced at Dylan. "See? He's tired. He'll come around." Dylan's eyes found mine. "Dad, please." I took a breath. "You should have come to me before, not after." "Plunge, we're here now," Sloane said, stepping closer, toe crossing the seam where the welcome mat met the jam. "And I have something that will make this simple for everyone." "What is it?" I asked. The porch, not the living room, would hear this first round. "A reminder," she said, smile sharpening. "Proof you meant what you wrote." Sloane sat at my kitchen table like it was an interview panel. She placed her phone between us, bright screen angled for maximum audience. "There," she said, pinching to zoom. "Your own words." On the screen, my email to Dylan from years ago after his mother died glowed with a yellow highlight over one sentence. "This house will always be open to you." A little gray timestamp sat in the corner like a stamp of inevitability. "Phased matters more than your highlights," I said. "The context," she replied, tapping, "is that you promised. We trusted your promise." Unchanged, dug by the fridge, hands in his pockets, eyes on the floor. The coil hummed like a nervous throat. "I wrote that when your mother was alive," I said. "It meant support. It didn't mean surrender." Sloane's thumb flicked. The phone buzzed with a banner at the top. HOA, Board Hearing, October 14. She didn't even look at it, she wanted me to. Prohibited people need clarity, she said. A promise is clarity. Speaking my wife's words twisted into chains around my neck, I said. Sloane smiled delicately. Chains can be comforting, keeps everyone together. Policing. We'll work out rules, Dylan said quickly. Chores, groceries, we won't be a burden. You already are, I said, softer than I felt. Sloane slid the phone closer. We should share this with the board, don't you think? It proves intent. It proves I loved my family, I said. She laughed once, a tiny bright pop. And love has obligations. Dylan cleared his throat. Maybe you should tell the truth, I said, looking at him. You sold the house and handed Sloane every cent. Then you landed on my porch with your suitcases and her smile. His jaw tightened. It's not that simple. It always is at the start, I said. It gets complicated later. By noon, complexity arrived with a feed. A neighbor texted me a link to the HOA Facebook group. Someone had posted a clipped video from last night, me in the doorway saying, "Not tonight," while Dylan's voice, off-screen, sounded small. The caption read, "Grandfather refuses shelter to his only son." The comments swarmed like yellow jackets. Cold, retired and alone. What's his excuse? That man sits on 2 empty rooms. That's not what I said, I told the screen. Perception is 9/10 of reality, Sloane murmured over my shoulder. Truth still counts, I said. She swiped again. Look, responses are strong. People are on our side. I'll make sure the board sees the full picture. Mean your picture, I said. She tilted her head, Dylan. He's being combative again. Promptly to keep this civil, Dylan said. Then tell your wife to stop using my name as a hashtag, I said. We drove to the church potluck because refusing would have been another headline. Sloane carried a store-bought pie like a trophy. On the sidewalk, 2 women glanced at my front porch and dropped their voices. I could feel the air around my house prickling, curiosity staked like a sign. Inside the fellowship hall, the smell of green beans and ham floated under fluorescent lights. I put my casserole next to a pan labeled Rachel's Mac, gluten-free. Sloane drifted toward the ladies' circle as if magnetic north sat there, palms open, voice tremulous. We just need kindness, she said. Is that so much? I poured sweet tea and saw Pastor Johnson across the room. He lifted a hand in a slow greeting, measured, cautious. Before I could reach him, Sloane's words spread in low ripples. She said they gave the money to save her mother, someone whispered near the crockpots. Hospital bills? Another said. If that's true, what's he doing turning them away? Misunderstand sidled up beside me. Maybe keep your voice down, he muttered. My voice is the only thing I own outright, I said. Dad, please. When your mother was sick, I said, we asked for help, precisely never. We told the truth and lived with it. Different time, he said. Last year, I said. It was elbow with the phone again, screen dimmed now, but the highlighted lines still legible. If the board asks, I'll just read this verbatim. You'll read a grief note and call it a contract, I said. How, she said, voice dropping into silk. This can be easy or hard. Easy for whom? For Rudga. For all of us, she said, if you stop resisting what you already promised. I stared at the screen a beat longer, then pushed it gently back across the table. Promises bind people, not property. She blinked as if I'd spoken a language she almost recognized but refused to learn. You're being dramatic, and you're being deliberate, I said. The meal line formed, plates clattered. Pastor Johnson drew near, but one of the deacons buttonholed him, and he changed direction. The room hummed with neighborly cheer that excluded exactly one person, me. At the end of the table, Mrs. Kilpatrick avoided my eyes, then glanced up with a bright, brittle smile. Evening, Hal. Evening, I said. Her smile fell before she could save it. She turned away, whispering to the woman beside her. I didn't need to hear the words to know the shape. Sloane's pie landed in the center like a crown jewel. She cut slices as if anointing a cause. Dylan hovered, trying to fill cups and cracks at the same time. I set my plate down and didn't taste a thing. On our way out, someone didn't move aside in the narrow hall, forcing me to turn my shoulders. Their conversation slid open just long enough to let a label through. Heartless old man. Saturday lay over the cul-de-sac like a lid. I was clipping the last brown heads off the roses when Sloane came up the walk with Dylan 2 steps behind, both dressed like a campaign stop. She had a printout in her hand, but she let it hang at her side like a tail, visible enough to bait a crowd, not enough to be examined. "Hal?" she called loud enough for Porches to wake. "We need to clear the air." "There's nothing foggy on my property," I said, setting the shears on the rail. A golf cart slowed. Mr. Patel raised 2 fingers, then pretended to check his mailbox. Across the street, Mrs. Kilpatrick hovered by her hydrangeas. The air in this neighborhood travels faster than the wind. Sloane stepped onto the boards with the confidence of a surveyor. "Neighbors," she said brightly, though only 2 were near enough to be called that. "We're just trying to keep family together. The HOA encourages cooperation." "HOA also encourages reading," I said. "You skipped that part." Albuquerque lowered her chin, the printout rustling like a stage cue. "In emergencies, families may cohabit temporarily," she announced, then softer to me. "You remember." "That clause refers to natural disasters," I said, "not shopping sprees." While Dylan winced. "Dad, please, can we not do this out here?" "It out here," I said. A couple from 2 doors down slowed their jog to eavesdrop. Sloane pivoted toward them, eyes too wet to be honest. "We sold our house," she said. "We gave the proceeds to me to manage. Now we need his help. Just a roof while we stabilize. But he..." She let the sentence float, inviting everyone to finish it with their favorite indictment. "In my own yard, I felt like the trespasser. Polluted the paper just enough to show an underline without showing the heading." "He's ignoring the spirit of the rules," she said. "That's not what this community is." "The spirit of my rules," I said, "starts at this line." I tapped the threshold. Dylan stepped between us. "Just a few weeks, Dad. I'll fix the gate. My rules in this house." Punished as if I'd swung something. "You can't mean that, distinguishing that." "I mean exactly that." Sloane turned to the nearest pair of eyes. Mrs. Kilpatrick's. "He promised us in writing," she said. "After his wife died, he sent an email. 'This house will always be open to you.' I'm not inventing anything." "Hey, you're reducing a grief note to a lease," I said. A teen on a bike coasted up, filming with his phone until his mother called him back from down the block. A pickup slowed. A man leaned his elbow on the window frame and watched. "Folks," Sloane said, beaming a smile that could have come in a box with instructions, "we're not asking for much. This is family." "This is my home," I said. Dylan's hands opened and closed. "What if we pay something?" he tried. "Rent, utilities, whatever makes it fair." "Unofficial fairness when you handed out the money," I said. Tightened. "It's complicated." "Kettle, it's uncomplicated here," I said, touching the jam. "This line protects what's on the inside, my peace, my name, my sleep." The joggers stopped pretending to stretch. Mr. Patel had found a second reason to check his mail. A dog barked, then a second, as if voting. "Maybe you're not aware," Sloane said, volume rising a notch, "but the board meets next week." She let the words hang like weather. "They take these things seriously, especially when someone promises hospitality and then slams a door." From the sidewalk, a neighbor muttered to his wife, "Board meets next week," and she nodded, eyes on me as if the meeting had been called to judge my soul. Sloane slid 1 foot forward until her toe nudged the welcome mat. "We could do this the easy way," she said, "or we could do it the hard way." "I prefer the true way," I said. "Ed Bell with a crack in it. Truth is on our side." "Then you won't mind when we bring all of it," I said. "All the spending, all the investments, all the stories." A ripple went through the little assembly. Mrs. Kilpatrick's eyes flicked to Sloane's hand, to the printout, to my face. Dylan found me again. "Dad," he said softly, "I'm still your son." "Unforsue you are," I said, and it hurt both of us. Sloane's smile tightened. "We'll let the board decide," she said. "They like order. They like compassion. They like facts," I said. A silence settled. A car door thumped. Somewhere, a grill lid clanged shut. The boy on the bike reappeared and then vanished. Sloane lifted the printout a fraction, just enough to flash a line like a blade. We'll be staying with you, she repeated, as if saying it a second time might make it legal. You won't, I said. Wilmington stood in the doorway geometry, me inside the frame, them on the boards, the neighborhood floating on either side like a jury without a box. Dylan's voice thinned again. Just a few weeks. Not in this house, I said, and the words steadied me like a handrail. Sloane nodded once, as if she'd won anything at all. We'll see you at the meeting, she said. Next week. She turned, tugging Dylan along, already angling her shoulder toward Mrs. Kilpatrick with a whisper that could be heard by anyone meant to hear it. The neighbors gathered their curiosity like folding chairs and went inside. I picked up the shears and didn't cut a thing. Mrs. Kilpatrick hesitated at the curb, looked from their backs to my door, then leaned just close enough for the sentence to land where it would do the most damage. Maybe you should just let them stay. Sunday afternoon, I pulled a carton of folders from the back of my study closet. The cardboard smelled like dust and ink, familiar as an old root bag. I spread the contents across my desk. Bank slips, scribbled notes, printouts Dylan had left behind when he meant to get organized. I ran a fingertip down a column of wire transfers. Numbers didn't lie, people did. A folder labeled House Sale held 3 sheets of neat handwriting, not mine. Dylan had jotted total equals $860,000 at the bottom, as if acknowledging the sum would sanctify its disappearance. I began marking margins, building a skeleton of the ledger that would later be fleshed out. The scrape of wheels pulled my eyes to the window. That kid on the bike, again, phone tilted toward my house like a spotlight. I stepped onto the porch. Everything okay, Mr. Whitaker? A neighbor called from her lawn, voice casual but tight. Fine, I said. Wilmington circled, phone raised. You recording? I asked. He shrugged. Just TikTok, sir. Of what? Of you, he said, smirk sharp as gravel under tire. Show some respect, I said, keeping my tone even. The neighbor folded her arms. We just don't want misunderstandings, Hal. I looked back at my desk through the window, at the loose papers stacked like a defense. Neither do I. Flagship word off. My phone buzzed immediately after, a calendar ping. Board hearing, October 14, 10 days. The timestamp glowed like a challenge. Later, as I collected the ledger sheets, my voicemail light blinked. Dylan's voice filled the room, cracked and small. Add, please don't make this worse. We're trying to get through a hard time. Just don't push. It's a kill, 618. I thumb pressed harder than necessary. My good name was bleeding out in whispers, I muttered. And into the silence, I said what the voicemail deserved. The truth is the only thing that can make it worse. The locksmith's van rumbled up just after 9. He hauled a tackle box of brass cylinders and tools onto the porch where my roses drooped behind the rail. Looks like you've had visitors, he said, eyeing the scuff marks near the knob. Family, I answered, the kind you lock out, not in. And set to work, metal scraped, screws clinked into a dish. The whine of the drill filled the entryway, steady and absolute. Ask obey the door for the monitor he carried in. Simple system, he said, mounting the screen to a shelf. Motion triggers the porch cam, stores to internal memory. Push of a button, you can export to USB. Does it show time? I asked, unprotected a setting. A red light blinked and the screen displayed a grainy view of my porch with a timestamp in the corner. This house is mine to defend, I murmured. He paused. Sir? Install the back door too, I said. By noon, the locks clicked with fresh teeth. The camera glowed like a watchman that never blinked. When he left, I swept the screws into a tin and checked the monitor again. The roses blurred on the screen, a soft guardrail. My phone buzzed. A text from Sloane. Locks don't keep family out forever. Boundary isn't cruelty, it's a line. Vigorously. Undermined. At dusk, I stepped outside to water the roses. A paper crackled underfoot, an HOA reminder notice taped to the door. Bold letters, board hearing next week. Moved from rumor to print. Flushed that night, I sat in the darkened living room, staring at the monitor. The feed shifted to black and white as the porch light kicked on. At 11:47 p.m., movement triggered the frame. Sloane's outline drifted into view. She circled slow, hair gleaming under the bulb, eyes flicking toward the door like she was testing its seams. The timestamp glowed at the bottom. Isando pressed save. The clip slid into memory with a beep. A house that once opened a family now kept its own record. Positioned, the heat had snapped, and the evenings came on quick. I took the pruning shears to the roses, nipping the brown blooms, letting them fall like spent coins onto the mulch. My phone buzzed. Dylan. I wiped my palm on my jeans. Go ahead. Surrendered hissed in his end. Motel AC, thin walls. Dad, we're at the Palmetto Inn. It's fine for now. How long is for now? A pause. 2 weeks, maybe less. I snipped a stem and watched the head tumble. You sold your house and called that a plan. Ebony, it was a plan, he said. We just hit a bad stretch. Crimson him, Sloane's voice bled through, sharp as a bell. Tell him we're not staying here. Tell him it's his turn. Turbulence, I stepped back from the thorns. Put me on speaker, I said. No, Dylan said, too fast. She's upset. I'm sure, I said. I am too. He tried a different road. We'll pay you back, Dad. With what? Anguish, just the hum of the unit and some hallway ice machine coughing. My son's voice sounded like dead itself. We just need a base. A few weeks at your place would let us regroup. You made this bed, and you'd let me lie in it? You sold the bed and tipped the bellman, I said. Now you want my guest room to be your lobby? He laughed once, brittle, then stopped. You don't have to be cruel. A boundary isn't cruelty, it's a line. I drew mine at the door. Sloane again, farther, but still crisp. Tell him he owes us for raising you right. Tell him the neighbors think he's heartless. The neighbors aren't raising me, I said, and guilt is not currency. He lowered his voice. It's not just the room, it's the noise. She keeps saying if I just give up the house, give up my name, give up what's left of our peace, no. He let out a breath that sounded like defeat. I can take on work. Nights. I'll fix your fence. The gutter. Here, I said. Another pause. I heard Sloane knock into something and mutter. Someone shouted down the hall. The ice machine groaned again like it owed people answers. Dad, the motel is burning cash. She's angry. If you gave us 30 days, I owe you truth, not 30 days. You keep saying truth like it's a bill you can send back. It's the only one that gets paid in the end. What am I supposed to do? Start where adults start. Stop the spending, find work, and stop letting her speak for you. That's not fair, he said, though he didn't sound sure. Fair would have been calling me before the sale, I said, not after. Sloane's voice rose near the phone, aimed at the call. Ask him what his email means then. Always open, remember? Make him say it. I looked at the roses, the stubs where blooms had been. It meant love, it didn't mean lease. Flirting like you're choosing pride over family, Dylan said. I'm choosing health over collapse, I said. Mine and yours. He breathed again, steadying. If I left, if I told her it's done, could I come by? Just to talk? You can always come talk, I said. You can't move in. On his end, footsteps, Sloane snapped. Don't you dare grovel. A TV on some cable channel blared a commercial jingle and cut. Dad, he said, voice dropping to a thin wire, please. If we have to leave this place, we don't have anywhere to go. You have options, I said, just not mine. The line was quiet for 3 beats. I could hear him turn away from the room, from her. When he came back, it was in a whisper that found the softest part of me and pressed hard. She'll ruin you if you don't bend. The receptionist slid a clipboard toward me, and I slid a folder toward her. Name, she asked. Harold Whitaker, ledger packet. Attorney, gray suit, no nonsense, gestured me in. Mr. Whitaker, I'm Lawson. I set the folder on his desk and opened it to the first page I'd marked in red pencil. Transfers, travel, handbags, and what she calls a boutique investment. Scanning. Dates line up with the house sale? I pointed. Sale closed on a Friday. First wire went out Monday. 2 more within a week. Spa charges listed as medical. He looked up. You prepared this yourself. At last, the math was louder than the lies. Lawson nodded once. Good. We'll formalize this as an exhibit for the HOA board file. I'll want originals or certified copies where possible. Nothing fancy, clean, chronological, legible. The paralegal stepped in with a rubber stamp and a yellow sticky note. The stamp clapped the desk twice, and when Lawson lifted the note, it read in bold ink, 7 days until board hearing. I felt the weight of the countdown settle in, heavier and steadier than gossip. Lawson tapped the ledger. Her claim is family crisis and an open house invitation you wrote years ago. That will not confer tenancy, but she'll try to make this moral, not procedural. She's already trying, I said. HOA Facebook, church whispers. Discredit. Then we stay boring, he said. Receipts, codes, dates. You don't argue on the internet, you document. He slid the stamp aside. Chain of custody. Bring originals to me. We'll scan in office and log. Keep your copies in a sealed envelope. Don't hand anything to anyone else. I pulled out my phone. Listen to this. I played Dylan's voicemail. Dad, please don't make this worse. We're trying to get through a hard time. Just don't push. Lawson folded his hands. That's not evidence of spending, it's evidence of pressure, useful context. But your son is an adult. He's also drowning, I said. He may be, but you're not the lifeboat she gets to commandeer. He tapped the folder again. This is how you keep both of you from going under. The intercom buzzed. The paralegal poked her head in. Do you want the packet log now? Yes, Lawson said. To me. 3-sentence montage. We copy, we log, we file. You keep an index card in that envelope at home listing exactly what you gave us today. He gathered the pages and handed me a stamped cover sheet. This acknowledges receipt. Shuffled. You can't spend compassion like cash, I said, half to him, half to the door. True, Lawson said, but people will try. Outside, the street in exhaust, I drove home, pulled the pruning shears from the hook, and stood at the roses. Petals had browned at the edges overnight. I clipped them away, leaving clean angles. My phone rang. Dylan. You went to a lawyer? His voice was tight, tired. I did, I said. Take makes you look worse, he said. Sloane says you're harassing us. Facts aren't harassment. You could have talked to me. I tried, I said. You let her do the talking. He exhaled a sound like defeat trying to stand. We just need time. You've had time, I said. Now I need the truth on paper. So you're really doing this? I am. Then whatever happens at that meeting, he said, remember I'm your son. I haven't forgotten, I said, but I'm also a man with a house. He went quiet. Somewhere on his end, a door latched. I hung up and slid the stamped cover sheet into a manila envelope, wrote today's date on the tab, and set it on the highest shelf in the hall closet. The closet door shut with a neat click. My phone chimed with a text from Lawson. Packet filed. She'll hit back harder. Be ready. I kept the phone in my hand a moment longer than necessary, watching the message glow like a flare against the next 7 days. Take the neighborhood feed pinged like a doorbell I couldn't unhear. A still image flashed on my phone, my porch at night, my mouth mid-syllable, a caption claiming I'd threatened my own family. Below it, a doctored bubble, don't come back. The font wasn't mine, the timestamp shaved and crooked. Position can edit a screenshot, but not a conscience, I said to the empty kitchen. Outside, 2 women paused on the sidewalk to stare at my door as if it might confess. One pointed at her phone, then at my house, and shook her head. I stepped onto the porch. Morning, they startled, then recovered into brittle kindness. We're praying, one said. Crimea or what? I asked. That you soften, the other said, and they moved on like a cloud deciding where to rain. Melior's buzzed again. Dylan. Did you see the post? He asked, already defeated. I saw a bad crop job and worse punctuation, I said. And your silence. I didn't make it, he said. Sloane, she's just trying to make people understand. She's trying to make a lie look familiar. It's not all a lie, he said. You did say, unleashed. I said not tonight, and I said it on my porch. That's where truth lives in this neighborhood. He exhaled, more apology than air. Maybe stop responding, Dad. You're making it worse. You taught me to fix leaky hoses at the source, I said. This leak starts at your kitchen table. I can't fight her, he said, small. Not right now. You're not fighting her, I said. You're letting her fight me with your name. He went quiet, and I let him go. Some silences you don't fill. You hold them up like a mirror. At the grocery, Pastor Johnson pushed a squeaky cart down the baking aisle. He saw me, nodded once, and didn't slow. Said, "Demolished," I said, eyes flicking to the phone in his palm. "Hard times." "They are," I said. "Harder when the truth gets edited." He leaned on the cart handle as if testing its weight. "Hard hearts make hard times harder." He lifted his chin toward the exit. "I have a hospital visit." He didn't take my hand. I stood with a loaf of bread and an empty answer. Back home, a couple from around the corner knocked. The wife carried sympathy like a casserole. The husband peered over my shoulder as if a camera crew might be hiding behind the ficus. "We just wanted to say, if you need help smoothing things with the board," she said. "I'm smoothing things with facts," I said. He cleared his throat. "Sometimes compassion is better than procedure." "Show it to my son," I said. He could use both. They retreated, and as they stepped off the porch, a heel slid into my flower bed. The woman yanked her foot free without looking down, and 3 rose petals tore loose and scattered like receipts in a fan. Inside, my inbox dinged. HOA reminder, 5 days until board hearing. The subject line wore the countdown like a badge. I stared at the number long enough for it to burn onto the back of my eyes. Another buzz. A neighbor I barely knew? "Hate to see this, Mr. Whitaker. People are talking." I typed, "People always are." I didn't hit send. The feed coughed up one more clip. Sloane at some neighbor's stoop, voice teary, saying my name inside sentences that made me sound like a policy. Comments bloomed. "He's rich enough to help. He's punishing them. He's bitter since his wife died." My reputation cracked louder than the truth beneath it. I texted Dylan, "Pull the post." He replied, "Not my call." "It's your marriage," I wrote. No reply. I set the phone down and stepped onto the porch again, this time to sweep the crushed petals off the step. The grainy memory of Sloane circling my porch. 11:47 p.m. The camera's exact truth flickered in my head. The neighborhood believed, paid for pixels, not the unblinking kind. Across the street, Mrs. Kilpatrick came out to water her hydrangeas. I lifted a hand. She saw me, adjusted her hose, and angled her face toward the blue blossoms, as if the flowers required strict attention just then. The stream arced prettily, carefully missing the sidewalk as if to avoid any splashback at all. The investigator arrived at the coffee shop with a folder tucked under his arm and the kind of walk that didn't waste anyone's morning. He said, "I'm Cruz. We took a corner table." He slid the folder halfway across the wood and kept one hand on it like a brake. "Before we look," he said, "provenance. Your attorney engaged me. I compiled from bank-authorized copies and merchant responses. You'll keep originals with counsel. Understood?" Release the folder. Inside, statements and glossy printouts of receipts. He tapped a fingernail against a line mid-page. "Bathrooms. See this merchant code?" Cruz said. "MCC 7298. That's health and beauty spas, not a hospital. The narrative doesn't match the charges." He turned another sheet. "Same code across multiple dates. Handbags and travel sit right next to it." In those numbers, I saw every lie priced out. He slid a few pages aside. "I'll summarize what I can testify to. You keep your commentary minimal. Boring wins." "I can do boring." The espresso machine coughed behind us. Cruz leaned back, reading my face. 2 days until the hearing," he added. "The board hates sloppy docs, be precise. 1 clean page beats 5 loud ones." "Chain of custody?" "Your lawyer logs the originals. You bring only copies to the room. If someone waves a phone, don't argue with it." I nodded. He stacked the top 3 receipts together and squared the corners. "Use these. Codes visible. I'll be available by phone if the chair has questions." He gathered the copies, careful not to crease them. Cruz's spoon clinked the mug once. Deck down, I laid the selected pages near the porch window, where the light was good, and took a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. In one of Cruz's photos, the reflection caught my railing. The roses blurred behind the glass like a memory that knew what it had seen. My phone vibrated. Position. What did you do today? Me. Met an investigator. Dylan. Why are you making this legal? Secure. Me. Because the truth needs a frame, not a rumor. He called. Dad, please. His voice carried the same motel hum as before. If you show those papers, you'll wreck everything left. I'm not wrecking anything, I said. I'm naming it. We're medical charges, he said. Therapy, recovery. You'll humiliate her. She humiliated herself when she called a spa a hospital. That's cruel, he said. Fraud doesn't turn honest just because it's family. He breathed a ragged line. I'm in those statements too. I know. So don't use them, he said quick, as if speed could beat the logic to the finish line. Please, find another way. There isn't another way that works inside the rules. Unleashed, street noise slid through his phone. Someone laughing, a car horn. In my house, the only sound was the soft tick of the wall clock and the quiet of paper being exactly what it was. I'm trying to fix this, he said. I'll talk to her. Open, I said. Comentarios. The call ended. A new text bubbled up almost at once, smaller as if he'd typed it with the phone hidden under a table. Wildfires. And use those receipts. The doorbell chimed and my phone dinged at the same time. On the screen, board hearing, 48 hours. The subject line glared like a stopwatch. I slipped the phone face up on the end table where everyone could see it. The roses outside the window were clipped too short from yesterday's pruning, stems showing, beauty overexposed. That felt like tonight. Ty Pastor Johnson came in first, careful with his hat. Two neighbors followed. Then Dylan and Sloane together, the way a storm front drags heat behind it. Thank you for coming, I said. We keep this civil. We keep it factual. Civility were a costume she could wear or not. Civil is all I want. I set a single page on the coffee table. One sheet, copies only, the originals with Lawson. This is a summary, I said. Dates and categories from the sale forward. Pastor glanced at the phone's subject line, then at the page. 2 days, he murmured. I met his eyes. 2 days. Gambling sank into the corner of the sofa. He wouldn't meet anyone's look. I began calmly. Sale proceeds in, wires out within days. A pattern that repeats. Medical charges coded to spas, luxury purchases labeled necessities. Travel, handbags, a boutique investment that doesn't exist. Sloane gave a tiny laugh. You combed our lives for gotchas. Cylindrical. I laid the math down like prayer beads, hoping someone would count. A neighbor leaned toward the page. This is pretty clear. It's one sheet because boring wins, I said. If you want noise, the internet has plenty. And what do you call a father turning on his own family in front of strangers? Turning on lies, I said, in front of witnesses. Vlasistia's jaw. Dad, please. You asked me for truth, I said. This is the part where I bring it. Sloane tapped the edge of the sheet with a manicured nail. He doesn't understand context, my mother's health. The merchant codes say spa, I said, not hospital. Nebraska shifted. Pastor cleared his throat. Let's keep to what can be verified. Sloane pivoted. You're humiliating us to look important. I'm protecting my home and my name. She looked to the room, collecting sympathy like loose change. He's obsessed. He's been calling employers, digging into accounts. None, I said. I hired an investigator through counsel. I followed the rules. Pastor nodded once as if that mattered to him. Procedure counts. Dylan's voice came out thin. Can we do this without the performance? Ask your father, Sloane shot back. He invited an audience. Because you made the street my audience, I said. This is me taking it back. Dieter brittle. If we're swapping reputations, let's swap risks too. At risks? A neighbor asked. Sloane's gaze slid to Dylan, then back to me. You know his company policy. Immediate termination for family interference in financial matters. He told you that. Dylan winced. Sloane Swayed her hard, he should know the stakes. She turned to Pastor in the room. If he keeps digging, Dylan loses his job. Pastor lifted a palm. Let's not threaten. Pagamber threat, Sloane said. It's a policy. Truth doesn't care about payroll, I said. Payroll cares about truth, she snapped, especially when a retired mailman plays detective. I kept my voice even. I was a postal worker. We don't lose things on purpose. The neighbor who'd spoken earlier looked between us. Is there proof of the boutique? There will be by Saturday, I said. For tonight, you have this pattern and that clock. I nodded toward the phone, its subject line still bright. Dylan finally met my eyes. You could stop. We could figure this out privately. We tried private, I said. You brought it to my porch. Sloane leaned back, satisfaction tucked behind her teeth. He's not stopping, she told the room. He wants us punished, not helped. I want the truth to stop being optional, I said. Pastor's gaze moved from the clipped roses outside to the paper between us. 2 days, he said again, heavy now. Let the board see what can be seen. Her skirt as if to iron the night flat. Then let's make this crystal. Of neighbors, eyes glistening on cue. If he keeps digging, Dylan loses his job. I cleared the dining table and laid out the originals like a hand I wasn't going to misplay twice. Title documents, bank pages, the 3 receipts Cruz flagged, my 1-page ledger summary in its first ink. I stacked, squared the corners, slid them into a manila envelope and pressed a strip of tape across the flap. I wrote the date, then drew my initials half on the tape, half on the paper. An index card listed what I'd sealed. Procedure isn't glamorous, it is gravity. Every page in that envelope weighed like armor and like stone. See dusk sink into the street. The roses had shut their small fists for the night. I took the envelope to the hall closet, the top shelf where the air stays dry, and paused with the door open, listening to the house. Quiet for once. A knock. Not urgent, official. I opened the door to find the HOA rep in a windbreaker, clipboard hugged to his chest like a shield. Evening, Mr. Whitaker, he said, just making rounds before Friday. Rounds mean what tonight? Gentle reminder, he said, words careful, eyes on the clipboard he did not offer. All materials must be pre-submitted. The board won't accept surprise filings in the room. I'm not surprising anyone, I said. I'm bringing copies of what I've already given counsel. He nodded. Good, keeps it clean. You've seen the bulletin, he added, chin tipping toward the community kiosk at the corner. Calendar's posted. Seen it. He shifted, then lowered his voice a shade. Lot of eyes on this one. Best to keep it procedural. That's the plan. He started down the steps, then looked back. Sometimes folks confuse compassion with policy. Sometimes folks use compassion as policy, I said. He didn't argue. Friday, 7, he said, and left. Say I walked to the kiosk anyway, just to feel the paper under my eyes. The bulletin board smelled of old cork and new toner. At the center, a white sheet with black type. Board hearing, Friday, 7 p.m. And beneath it in red, 2 nights. The number tugged at my pulse like a hook. My phone buzzed. Dylan. Dad, he said, breath already tight. Whatever you're planning, ease off, please. I'm not planning anything new, I said. I'm preparing to show what's true. She says you're trying to get her fired from being, I don't know, a human being. She's trying to make my house her alibi. Kook. You're making this worse, he said. Pastor said you've turned it into a crusade. Pastor's welcome to pray. I'll bring receipts. Phased, a long, tired rope unspooling. Just, for 2 days, could you not escalate? No more posts, no more meetings, no more. I'm not bending, I'm bracing. Can you hear yourself? He said, voice climbing. You sound like a man who learned, late, that promises can be forged. He went quiet. I could hear motel TV noise bleeding through again. Indestructible commercials trying to sell a softer world. I don't want to stand up there while she's torn apart, he said. I can't. Torn apart by the truth, only by the lie. The truth hits me too. Then we take the hit clean, I said. and stop being hit over and over by it in the dark. She's rallying people, he said. She says the board cares about optics, that if you keep pushing, they'll call it harassment. The board cares about the rules, I said, so do I. Fragile. Do you still care about me? Gravitational, and my son, I said. Care is the reason I won't trade my name for your comfort. He swallowed hard. I should go. I'll see you Friday, I said. We hung up. I stood in the foyer with the envelope under my arm and the porch light haloing the closed buds on the roses, all of them tucked in tight, like they knew something about weather. I slid the envelope onto the top shelf of the closet, shut the door, and rested my palm against the wood. 2 nights. Friday morning, the HOA office smelled like toner and old coffee. A digital wall clock glowed above the counter. Friday, hearing 7 p.m., one day. It watched me cross the room. Submerged? The front clerk asked without looking up. Copies only, I said, setting my packet on the counter. Originals are sealed with counsel. She clicked her pen like a metronome. Name? Harold Whitaker. She slid the packet toward a copier. The machine warmed with a low growl. A glass vase on the counter held cut roses, their heads tilted, stems already browning. Someone had arranged them with care and then left them to faint. The copier coughed, swallowed a page, beeped. The clerk sighed. One moment. It's all there, I said. She slapped the side panel. The paper wheezed free, creased like a bad memory. Looks like we're missing a page. We're not, I said. You jammed it. She held up the wrinkled sheet like a trophy. Then we'll need a clean reprint. I brought 1 copy. You're the office with the machine. She blinked, unoffended. We try to keep everything uniform. Behind me, a chair squeaked. A neighbor in a ball cap looked up from his phone, measuring me as if I were a headline. My pocket buzzed. Dylan, please don't file anything else. For the family's sake. Me. The family's sake is the truth. Dylan. You're forcing this in front of everyone. Me. You two put it there. I'm just refusing to lie about it. Dylan. Withdraw the packet. We can talk to the board informally. Me. Informal is how the money disappeared. The clerk slid a form across the counter. Sign to acknowledge receipt. I'll sign when you stamp it, I said. And please note, copies in the log. She gave me a tight, professional smile. We don't stamp until the intake is complete. It is complete, I said. Sir, the page is damaged. You damaged it. Flushed, at me, as if that detail had been erased by a policy memo. I'll make a duplicate from your original. You don't have my original, I said, and you won't. The copier whined again. Paper shuffled like cards. The wall clock pulsed its patient message. One day. My phone buzzed once more. Dylan, if this goes ugly, I'm the one who gets fired. Me. Losing a job for telling the truth is better than keeping one by hiding it. Dylan, that's easy for you to say. No, it's not. The clerk brought the packet back with a rubber stamp in her hand, then paused, eyes dropping to a checklist. Is there a problem? I asked. She checked a box. Per policy, late or incomplete materials may be deferred for review. They're neither. Your ledger summary references receipts not attached. They are attached, I said. She flipped to the wrinkled sheet, held it like proof of a sin I'd committed in thought. This one is not legible to our standard. I looked at the roses, cut pretty, dying anyway. Rules I trusted bent in her hands like wet paper. I took a breath. You have the data. Note that the originals remain with counsel, and I will present copies at the hearing. She pursed her lips, picked up the stamp, and pressed it down on a pink slip. The ink bled crisp and officious. Submission received, review deferred. Deferred means what? I asked. It means the chair will decide if this packet is part of the record tonight or at a later date. Tonight matters, I said. She shrugged, already reaching for the next file. We try to keep everything uniform. I slid the pink slip toward me and read it again, slower, as if speed had been the problem. Delay doesn't erase the truth, it only ages it, I said. Sir? She asked. Nothing. The door hissed when I opened it. The digital clock over the counter glowed the same patient line behind me. On a bench by the door, the neighbor in the ball cap pretended to stretch, then muttered, "You're making it worse for Dylan," to the air between us. He didn't wait for my answer. Outside, the sunlight was too clean to be believed. I stood on the steps and texted Dylan just one line. "I'm showing up anyway." Back in the foyer at home, I set the pink slip on the console and stared at it until the words fuzzed. Then I said what the paper had the nerve not to. "They're buying her more time." Light and informal session, which meant folding chairs, a humming soda machine, and a sign that asked for civility in all comments. The room smelled like floor wax and old arguments. Neighbors lined the wall as if they were browsing a sale. Sloane arrived late enough to be observed. She dabbed her eyes, nodded at familiar faces, then chose a seat at the front where the light loved her. The HOA chair lifted a hand. "We're here to keep Friday efficient. Ground rules? We're not deciding anything tonight. 24 hours until the formal hearing." Murmurs, phones up. Dylan slid into the row behind me and stared at his shoes. The chair nodded to Sloane. "You requested time to address the community." She stood, palms together like she was collecting prayer. "We sold our home," she began, voice trembling. "We handed the proceeds to me so I could manage my mother's health costs. We asked my father-in-law for help." He slammed the door. A woman near the back gasped on cue. A man whispered, "Shame." I rose halfway. "With respect, the health costs were Spa's," Sarah said. "You'll have a chance." Sloane continued, "He's been stalking our finances, harassing us, trying to destroy Dylan's job." Dylan's shoulders sagged. He didn't look up. I turned to him. "Dylan, please tell them what the codes show." He rubbed his jaw. "Can we not do this here?" I said. "And he's brandishing papers that aren't even in the record. He tried to sneak them in today." Pastor Johnson cleared his throat, standing slow. "Let the process play out," he said, gaze skimming away from mine. "We should be gentle where we can." "Gentle with lies makes them grow," I said. The HOA rep in the windbreaker stepped forward with a clipboard and a familiar pink slip. He didn't look at me as he spoke to the room. "Administrative note, materials presented by Mr. Whitaker were logged this morning as received, but marked review. Deferred, pending chair determination." That's the wrinkled louder than I meant to. A neighbor in the aisle stage whispered, just loud enough to carry, "He forged that promise once, why not now?" I faced Dylan again. "Son, look me in the eye and tell them what's true." He did look, finally, but he gave me nothing. His silence was a verdict that wasn't mine. In that hall, I wasn't just unheard. I was erased. Sloane's voice softened. "We're not asking for punishment, just compassion." He promised his home would always be open. We believed him. I stepped to the aisle. "You turned grief into a contract. You called a spa a hospital. I followed the rules. I filed lawfully. You can't defer a life lived inside these walls." "Mr. Whitaker," the chair said, palm raised, "this is not the hearing. We won't litigate facts tonight." "Then stop letting her litigate feelings," I said. Kenshin pricked the room. A folding chair scraped the floor. The soda machine hummed like it had an opinion. The rep lifted the pink slip again so the stamp caught the fluorescent light. "For the sake of clarity," he said, voice flat, "Mr. Whitaker's materials are deferred at this time." Submerged heralded her lashes, merciful now that she'd won the point. "We just want a little kindness." A few people began to stand. The door opened. Through the glass, I saw the community center's landscaping, tight hedges, beds of red roses near the steps. As the first wave of neighbors filed out, a heel slipped off the curb and ground a bloom into the concrete. Petals smeared like lipstick on a collar. I stayed standing. The chair adjusted his glasses and looked directly at me, as if reading a verdict. He said, "Even, official, your materials are deferred. You'll have no standing tonight." Friday, the house felt smaller than her lies, and heavier. I stood by the window and watched the porch light silver the steps. The roses had slumped in the damp, petals loosening, falling one by one onto the boards like dropped tickets no one would collect. Take. On the console lay the pink slip from the office, its stamp a bruise that refused to fade. The HOA had called it dusk. Voicemail from the clerk with the pen-click voice. Your materials remain logged as deferred. The chair will exercise discretion tomorrow. Logged, deferred. Two words that cancel each other while pretending to help. I took a walk to the community center to keep from talking back to paper. The bulletin board under the street lamp wore a fresh notice, neat as a wedding invitation. Hearing tomorrow, 7 p.m. A moth pitched itself at the plastic cover and thudded off. I counted the hours and got the same answer every time. How? Mrs. Kilpatrick's voice came from behind me. She held her tote like a shield and kept her eyes on the glass. People don't want a scene. They want a tidy story, I said. One she can cry through. She's persuasive, Mrs. Kilpatrick admitted. Maybe just let the board handle it, I said. They deferred the truth. She chewed the inside of her cheek. You've lived here a long time. It'd be a shame to. She cut herself off. Anyway, evening. She hurried off without meeting my eyes. On the walk home, a neighbor stepped out of his drive, phone already cued to the feed. Sloane's face filled the screen, lit with the soft glow of sincerity. Tears, my name shaped like a thorn. Why push her harder? He asked not unkindly, as if he were offering me a chance to be decent. Because she's pushing the lie, I said. She says you want to make an example of them. I want the rules to mean something. He sighed, thumb hovering over the heart icon. Well, tomorrow, I guess. He angled the screen back to his face, the glow cutting his features into soft sympathy I didn't earn and didn't want. He walked away, taking the light with him. Back on my porch, I swept the petals with a tired broom. They smeared in faint lines along the step. The camera inside the charger watched in monochrome. The monitor in the living room blinked when I moved. My phone buzzed once. A text from an unknown number funneled through the HOA. Reminder, deferred items will not be considered absent chair motion. The bureaucracy had learned how to speak plainly when it wanted to disappoint. I set the phone down and stared at the pink slip again. You can't cancel truth like a meeting, I told the room. The room refused to argue. Another buzz. Dylan. We shouldn't do this tomorrow. Terminated. I typed. Don't come tomorrow. It'll only get worse. The hall hay for me. Folding chairs. Phones raised. The low current of neighbors deciding who they were. On the dais, a glass vase of fresh roses glowed under the lights. New stems. Unbruised. Pedestrian struck the gavel. This is the scheduled hearing. It begins now. I stood. Harold Whitaker. I'll keep it boring. Unimagined twitched somewhere and died. The HOA lawyer adjusted his glasses. I set one USB on the table, one packet. Porch footage already seeded in our system. Copies of receipts previously logged with counsel. And a brief verification from the so-called boutique. Sloane exhaled loud enough to write a microphone. This is harassment. You've had your turns with feeling. The board chair nodded to the tech. The screen filled with my porch at 11:47 p.m. Black and white grain, the rail, the mat. Timestamp bright in the lower corner. Sloane slid into frame, circling, whispering to someone off camera, then looking straight at the door with a private smile. Prohibited pause, the lawyer said. He turned to me. Recorded on your property? Yes. Notice posted. Chain of custody through counsel. The clip resumed. Her voice dropped, clear enough. I burned through all of it in 4 months. Daddy-in-law can't stop me. The sound went through longs in churches when people remember themselves. Sloane barked, You can't use that. Privacy? The lawyer shook his head. This is a public meeting. The venue admits it. We moved to the montage. I kept it to 3 sentences as instructed. Receipts flicked by, merchant codes matching health and beauty spas, luxury bags, travel, dates lined against the sale, the page of totals. The pattern that counted itself. Pastor Johnson rose, voice steady. I vouch for Mr. Whitaker's honesty. I've known him 20 years. He does what he says. Sloane pivoted so the crowd could see her tremble. He's trying to destroy my family. He threatened Dylan's job. Night I faced my son. Dylan, is there a boutique? He stared at the tabletop as if it might open and save him. There was an arrangement. With who? I asked. He swallowed. With a man Sloane met online. I didn't. He stopped. The room waited. It wasn't real. A neighbor hissed, "My God." Sloane lunged. "Stop talking." Then to the board. "None of this proves intent." "Escorted?" I said, lifting my phone. "Speaker?" The call clicked through. A man answered on the second ring, voice ragged. "Yeah?" Old Whitaker. "You told me you'd tell the truth if asked." "She will not." Sloane started, but the chair tapped the gavel once. The voice came again louder. "My wife found out. The boutique doesn't exist. Sloane wired me the money. It's gone. I'll testify if I must." Lawyer leaned toward the microphone. "State your name for the record." He did. The room took it down like medicine. His face broke. "That was private. Illegal." "A company," the lawyer said, gentle as a locked door. "The admission stands." She turned on me. "You think this makes you righteous? You think humiliating me? You burn through money you won't burn through money?" Dylan made a sound I'd never heard from him. A small animal caught in a wire. "I'm sorry, Dad," he said loud enough for the mics. "I let it happen. I let her do it. I was a coward." "Son," I said, and it was the only soft thing I needed to say. Sloane wobbled. The performance slipped. A person was left. "Please," she said to no one, to everyone, "don't do this to me." The hall held its breath. Pastor bowed his head. The chair looked to the lawyer. The lawyer stacked the copies I'd brought, 1, 2, 3, squared the corners and faced the room. His voice had no edges left to soften. "Evidence stands." Skip the floor, hands out, palm to air, she begged toward the dais. Words spilling, mascara streaking, the sound of a life inventing mercy after the bill arrives. My name weighed nothing now. It had been lifted. Windshield came with the kind of light that forgives paint. I was on the porch with a hose, tipping water into the beds, when the HOA rep in the windbreaker turned up the walk with a white envelope. "Morning, Mr. Whitaker," he said, voice formal but not unfriendly. "We're posting the decision." He handed me the copy and held up a second for the bulletin board. Bold type at the top steadied my hands. "Issued Sunday, 10 a.m. "Read it?" he asked. "To the kiosk together." He thumbtacked the notice under the glass with 2 crisp clicks. A couple of neighbors drifted near as if they'd been headed this way all along. Back on my porch, I slit the envelope with a thumbnail and read aloud. "Board decision. The association finds no violation by homeowner Harold Whitaker. Evidence reviewed establishes no obligation for residential accommodation of adult relatives. Materials provided corroborate misuse of funds by non-resident parties. Sanctions, suspension of neighborhood amenity access for Miss Sloane Hart and Mr. Dylan Whitaker for 6 months. Cease and desist regarding defamatory postings. No representations of residency at the Whitaker address. Referral of boutique transaction materials to law enforcement for review." I looked up. "Whitaker cleared. Sanctions issued." The words landed with a soft thud in the quiet morning. The rep nodded once. "You'll get a stamped copy for your files." "Thank you," I said. He tipped his clipboard toward the roses. "They'll come back quick with water." "I'm counting on it." He left. Neighbors lingered at the edge of the walk, the way people wait after a prayer. Mrs. Kilpatrick stepped closer, hose already in her hand from her own yard. "I can do the far bed," she said, not quite asking. "Please," I said. We watered in a slow, companionable silence. Petals lifted, the porch boards darkened where the runoff pooled and vanished. Footsteps on the sidewalk, Dylan. He stopped at the bottom step like it had become a gate. Last night's apology still hung on him, but today it wasn't a performance, it was gravity. "I read it," he said. "Stabilize." "I read it too," I said, holding up the page. The header stared back, issued Sunday, 10 a.m., like a clock that had finished counting down. "Take." "I'm sorry," he said, voice rough. "For all of it, for believing her, for letting it get this far, for making you the villain because it was easier than admitting I was weak." Forgiveness is heavy when you've got to carry it both ways. He nodded, eyes wet. "Can you forgive me?" "Yes," I said, "with conditions." He swallowed. "Name them." "You rebuild on your own. You don't move here. You get clean about the money and about the lying. You show up where the law asks you to show up, and you stop letting anyone spend your name. He breathed out like he'd been waiting to be told what a spine was for. I can do that. Mercy isn't a spare room. It's a chance to stand up. He looked at the page again. She's gone, he said. Packed before sunrise, I don't know where. I know where she isn't. He laughed once, the human kind. I'll make it right, Dad. You'll start, I said. Right is a longer road. He wiped his face and glanced toward the neighbors, who pretended to study the hedges. Do they? Unleashed, they'll come around, I said. People like a posted answer. He stared at the notice under glass, then at the roses opening one petal at a time. Can I help? He asked, nodding at the hose. Hand me the bucket, I said. He did. We didn't say anything for a while. Pastor Johnson walked by in his Sunday suit, slowed and tipped his hat. Mr. Whitaker, he said, justice served. Justice didn't feel like triumph. It felt like air returning. Amen, he said, and kept walking. I set the ruling on the rail to dry in the sun and read the last line again, quieter this time. Whitaker cleared. Sanctions issued. The way a man repeats news to make his bones believe it. At the curb, a couple of neighbors lingered and didn't look away when I noticed them. No casseroles, no speeches. Just the decency of people staying long enough to let a name settle back where it belongs. As I turned off the hose. The board steamed a little in the light. Dylan stood with his hands in his pockets like a boy about to ask if there was anything else to do. There will be, I said, when it's time. He nodded, the roses mine, took the water, and lifted. Patience isn't weakness. It's the quiet hinge that turns a door. After they came to live on my porch in stories, evidence and time did the lifting. My name stands where it belongs. I water the roses, steady as breath, and end the morning with a small mercy as the hose handle clicks shut. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment your thoughts below. Type 1 if you resonate with this story.